not fixed yet, guys. It's coming in. It's coming in. But I think in the meantime, we shouldn't waste too much time because I think that there's actually a lot of great stuff to talk about when we're looking at the markets in general. Looking at the overall crypto market, which is obviously tuning in and which is looking quite promising now with the recent break that we saw, and again being above the 67K with 71K ahead of us. It's a very interesting level to witness and also a very interesting point in time for the markets, looking at where we are today from a date perspective, being end of October. But also, I think in general, the market development that we're seeing, also on the RWA sector, where more and more volume is being pushed into the market on a daily basis currently, and where I think also now more and more players are seeming to enter the market from a private market perspective, which is really interesting. And it's also something that I will be covering in the AMA of today. We have seen huge success so far in the public markets and the tokenization of public markets. I think the securities market, the treasuries that we have seen being tokenized by players like Ondo, etc., I think they have been able to really prove their case till date. Where we have seen less action, where we have seen less um, credibility, so to say, and substance being built, is in the private markets. And what do I mean with private markets? With private markets, I'm talking about real estate, I'm talking about art, I'm talking about wines, I'm talking about private debt that is being tokenized. And I believe that if we look back at the trajectory that we have been running for the past, let's say, 2 years, I believe now, um, we have always been really focused on how do we get our products to a stage where we can actually create similar substance to what is being done currently with tokenization in public markets. And I believe that in today's AMA, I'm really able and very proudly able to start showing the substance that we have been working for. The reason why we most definitely haven't seen much substance in the private markets is because it's a lot harder than I think everyone expected further down the line. I can remember that when we started the whole journey of building Propchain with the fractionalized investment concept, and all the way before it was called RWA and just had the name security token, everybody was kind of preaching that tokenizing private market assets would make it so liquid and would make it so much cheaper, and all of the USPs that were mentioned back then. But I think that over time, over the past 2 years, we have really seen that many of the concepts that stood by us 2 years ago are today non existent anymore. And other than that, the ones that have been making it are still really struggling to get the volumes in. That was us as well. I mean, over the past year, I mean, we have been struggling all across, especially at the beginning of the year and maybe even the year before, a lot harder still than this year. But what we have really noticed is that it's very important to pivot at the right moment in time. If we are looking at the protocols, trying the private market assets, we have mainly seen that they have been struggling a lot with finding volume because the traditional crowd wasn't adopting the technology at all. I'm talking about traditional investors, especially traditional investors in private market assets, because those are generally not really your typical Web3 user. And I think that the concepts are great. There's a lot of great stuff out there, but simply having a focus on just the Web3 crowd alone is not going to cut it in order to find the adoption that we need to get this to a scale where it makes sense, also from a business perspective. And in today's AMA, I want to start talking more about how we have pivoted across the board. And since the moment that we found out that simply tokenizing an asset is not creating demand for it all out of thin air. So this is, I think, a very good realization. It's also a realization that I want to share with you guys because it's very important to understand our journey till date, but also the pivot that we have had, or multiple pivots actually, that we have had on the product. So prop.com, as well as the ecosystem that we're building behind it. And we have touched based on that topic before, but I think today, with what we have been able to accomplish in the last, let's say, 4 to 6 months, we should be really, really proud on seeing that the pivots that were taken also have been rewarded by result. Um, I'm going to look here. I think that we have a presentation ready, which is great. I'm looking forward to that. So let's kick off with a presentation, guys. First of all, I am really, really happy to see you all back here. I got a lot of messages all across the board over the past, I think, 3 months, 4 months. It is the last time that we did an AMA. Um, I'm not dead, as you can see. I'm still here. It was so long ago that we were even facing technical issues today. But I think that the wait is always rewarded. I've said it multiple times. When you hear me less, we are mostly doing more. And that's truly what it is. I think the market in general, over the course of the last 4 months, gave us a perfect condition, so to say, to build in. I strongly believe that during the downtimes in the market, during the more quiet times, the lower volume times where volume on all ends, on the markets, but also on socials and everywhere, generally drops, you should be building, and you should be building hard. You should never stop building, also not in full bull and in positive sentiment. But I think that the shift in focus when it comes to communication and internal focus in the team is always driven by the actual underlying effort to keep on building. And that's what we did. Over the past 4 months, we have really taken our time to step back, to zoom out, to look at our operation and to say, hey, where do we really need improvement in order to hit the targets that we have set for ourselves until the end of the year? Where are we missing resources? Where are we missing people, human resources? Where are we missing um, resources in terms of money, in terms of clarity, in terms of technology? And I think that zoom out that we did throughout the summer months was one of the best decisions that we have ever made, because ever since we came back to the table 2 months ago, everything has changed, and a lot of substance have been created over the course of that particular approach. So for us, that's where today's AMA is about. We have the integration and the prop.com updates. In the meantime, I'm going to put it here on my screen as well, so I have it in front of me and I don't have to look into the control station all the time. If it can be shared with me here too. Yes, I have it here right in front of me. So now we are actually able to stream, which is great. So today, the integration. It's a topic that a lot of people have been waiting for. But before we get to that topic, I want to touch on some of the other important elements of the product itself, the ecosystem itself, touching base again on the vision and the structure of it all before we head to what the vast majority, I believe, of the viewers and the attendees today has been looking for the past few months. And also something that we have been preaching for a few months and where we have been delayed quite significantly with good reasons, actually. Other than that, today I would like to run you through the updates on the prop.com side. I think the fundamental vertical prop.com has gone through massive change. And as I mentioned, I think that that is very noteworthy. So that's something that I would like to discuss with you all today as well. I think if you want to move to the agenda, um, we can simply say that we start with the updates. Then we will head into the topic of token integration. And eventually, I would like to brief you on all of the ecosystem efforts that we have taken and the growth items that are there on schedule for the rest of this year, for the rest of 2024, but also heading into 2025 and what you can expect from the start of 2025 moving forward. So that's for me today where I would like to take you through. So let's do a little refresher here, actually. We need to start with a recap of the actual vision of the Propchain ecosystem. If we can skip a slide, I think that it's good to stand still by what that vision actually is and what it means, because I think for still a lot of people, this may be unclear till date. So, first of all, we envision a digitally empowered real estate value chain. And I believe that for people who aren't in real estate, this could be quite a vague terminology. What is that real estate value chain? And how do you envision to digitize that value chain? So, to keep it short, to keep a long story short, a very, very long story short, because the real estate value chain is an insanely complex and long chain, I would say. But to keep it short, what we're trying to do here is to change the narrative of how we look at real estate investment today, and maybe change it in a way, change it in a perspective of transforming a private market into more of a public market. That's probably one of the end visions that we have in mind with what we are trying to build here from a technological perspective. But in order to do that, you will need to break through a whole lot of complexities, cross border complexities, due diligence complexities, auditing complexities, financing complexities, you name it, regulatory one, not to forget. And I think that to recap our past journey since the first day we started with the creation of Propchain until where we are today, we have really been through the entire value chain, I could say. And we have seen all of the inefficiencies. Because if we recap it a bit to where we started, we were actually, as Propchain as a whole, nothing more than a team of people envisioning the fact that we could digitally and invest in real estate in a fractionalized manner on the basis of tokenization technology. But across that whole spectrum of the first day of effort to where we are today, we found out that that is an ultra complex operation. And still till date, we are being confronted with a lot of challenges in that particular mission and vision that we have here. The most interesting part is that during that period, we have really found out that the vast majority of processes in this industry is really inefficient or is outdated or a combination of both in the vast majority of the cases. So what we have done along the way is have seen or and have looked for ourselves what makes the most sense to be digitized across the board. And maybe even more importantly, in a stagnant industry as the real estate space, how are we taken or how will we be taken seriously in that effort? I can remember very well that when we pitched the concept first, um, I think it's now 3 years ago, approximately, people were laughing at us. People were really, really in a big disbelief state. And it's really great to see that today the same people are actually coming back to us for partnerships, for solutions, and so forth. It shows the general digitization nature of not only real estate, but the entire space. There is more and more adoption by institutions. Crypto in general becomes more interesting. But what you see now a lot more often than back in the days is that actual technology is being tested by large scale institutions. And that's something we were hoping for, but it's also something that we have been working for as per where we are today and the substance that we have, the track record that we have built within the company. So the envisionment of a digitally empowered real estate value chain is something that we still live for. But how is that driven? Let's actually move one slide further and look at what that value chain is actually looking like and how we are trying to get to the point of reaching an entirely digitized value chain, which is basically the goal here. So first of all, let's talk about the changes that we have made over time, because I believe that the first fundamental element to understand here is the top layer of the ecosystem, which is basically the Propchain Foundation and the Propchain DAO. It's something that we have incorporated earlier this year. We have briefed all of you about it. And the reason why we have done that is that we believe that the mission and the vision are so large and that it's so humongous when it comes to reaching a state of a really digitized real estate value chain that we cannot do this alone. We're very honest about that. We're also very open about that because we need collaboration. A foundation was actually the most logical way of going about that, because the foundation goes a lot broader, a lot larger than we would be capable of being as an organization on its own. The foundation also has no beneficial owner. The foundation is basically every single one that is participating through PROPC with its underlying governance rights. So this is something we have incorporated not just to have an entity that has tokens in it. No, this is an actual entity that is, or a foundation that is created for the fact that we want all of the participants that play an active role within that vision that we have to be able to participate and to be able to make decisions, and the decisions go broad. We have seen several of the proposals that we have already did, this will only increase. More about that later in this presentation as well. But the essential fundamental part of the foundation is really to drive that vision over the line together, and that all the individual stakeholders will have a say in that particular trajectory of working on that particular vision. The DAO is there, the governing part. So the right side of the top layer that you see there is basically the governance part of the foundation. That's how we will be making decisions moving forward, and how we have been making decisions when it comes to all sorts of topics. This goes from treasury management to incentives to actual changes in, for example, the tokenomics, as what we have seen, but also simply now moving into the deep, so to say, with the tech side of things, and also the partners that we have onboarded there is something that will start playing a role here. Because eventually what we are looking to accomplish is that we have a roundtable basically where a certain direction is decided by the sum of its parts. That's basically the idea here. Then below that, we have the actual Propchain ecosystem. And that's a very important one, because those are actual organizations that go into the real world and that actually bring the vision of the foundation to life. I think one of the most well-known one by all of you is Prop.com, right? That has the tangibility that it has today. Prop.com mainly focused on changing the narrative, changing the way how we are investing in real estate. It's basically the digitized version from what people have been doing for thousands of years in the real world, buying assets, leveraging assets, making money on those assets, right? That's the idea of a successful real estate investment. But other than that, also the more technological plays that we're doing with the other business verticals. And example that we have been naming here is, for example, Propchain Cloud, where we are mainly focused on infrastructure development. That goes all the way from blockchain-based infrastructure to off-chain based infrastructure, as well as the bridge between on and off-chain. Also more about that further down here in the presentation. But it's very good to understand and to have a refreshed mind on how this whole ecosystem actually functions. The foundation driving a mission and a vision forward, being not even an entity, and then having the ecosystem itself being very practical, active businesses that are delivering on the vision of the foundation and the collective decision-making that's happening there. That brings me actually to the news slide. That's the update on Prop.com. I think that, first of all, I want always to start with a bit of good news. And I think the good news here is that I believe that we can now say that we have really found the substance that we were looking for. Not too long ago, we made the shift from the retail investors to qualified investors only. For the people that are actively following us on the platform, you may have seen already that there's only a possibility left to invest from 100,000 euros onwards, $115,000 from the top of my head. And that's not without a reason. This is not saying no to the smaller investors. This is simply a strategic choice that we made in order to reach that particular substance, to reach the scale that I was just talking about. If we want to push this technology over the line, the first thing that every single party is asking for that we sit on the table with is, okay, but how much have you actually done? What is the volume that you have been able to run over the platform and over the technology that you are preaching here? And this was for us a fundamental point a few months ago, where we said, okay, we need to take the different approach if we want to make this, if we want to drive this over the line. And that's what we did. And I believe we did that quite successfully. I think we did it so successfully that by now, with the upcoming technology updates that I'm giving you further here down the presentation, we are taking the #1 position in volume when it comes to real estate as a sub-narrative of the RWA narrative as a whole. And that's something we are obviously extremely proud of. At the same time, we also do realize that this was a decision that takes a lot of work. And it's also a decision that will probably keep us busy for the next 2 years or so, until the current pipeline and the future pipeline that we have in terms of developments and redevelopments has been completed successfully and investor returns and investor initial investments have been returned successfully. That doesn't mean that doing developments and redevelopments ourselves will remain the strategy within prop.com. I'm going to explain a lot more about that scale-up strategy of prop.com further down in the presentation. But let's take a look at the actual pipeline that we have in front of us today, because we are quite proud of that, and I believe you should know everything about it. First of all, we have been able to make the first actual scale up, I believe, in our development career, where we have been mainly running projects up to $10 to $15 million at the max. We had the amazing opportunity to partner up in Luxembourg, something which you may know from where we have our full operation when it comes to the issuance of our investment products, to actually take part in a serious development. We're looking at an nearly $86 million development here, which will be very nicely branded in prop.com, and I believe that is a massive accomplishment for the whole team. This is a new league, this is a new industry, this is a very tight community of developers that is operating in this scale. So coming in and being able to push the prop.com brand forward on such a large substance is something that holds amazing value when it comes to the further development of our volumes and our pipeline. This is something, again, that really hits home when we're talking about substance and we're talking about proof of concept. And I believe this will also really, really set the mark in the Web3 space and showing what this business model actually entails. You can go there, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. And I think this is something that kind of hasn't been done before in the Web3 space when it comes to tokenization. So we're really proud of that. But nevertheless, I believe also the projects that we have now launched here in Dubai, as you can see, 2 great redevelopments, another full ground up development with beautiful volumes as well. We're talking 13, 20, and nearly $8 million that we are listing now on the platform. Keep an eye, by the way, if you are on the platform, because it's all going live in the beginning of next week. But this pipeline starts piling up. We're looking at the magical number that we have been able to cross. We're well over the $100 million. We're at 125, nearly $126 million. So I think the past few months, I wish that it were a few weeks, have been really successful for us at the prop.com side. And trust me, guys, this is really why I have been quiet, because those projects have been giving me a bit of a headache, or at least they have been slurping my energy. But that's all for the better. So 4 under development currently, but it doesn't stop there, because we have a very interesting pipeline that is currently under the due diligence stage. Some are already in signing. And it's also a big part, actually, of the scale-up strategy that we are looking into right now. As you can see on the slide already, there's more pipeline coming here in Dubai. Obviously, we are here. We have our headquarters here, so we know the market well, and the opportunities are simply great. So we don't want to sit still here. There's a few other reasons that I'm going to disclose to you all in a bit. But other than that, also our European scale-out is in full force now. The Luxembourg project is the first project that we have launched to make our entry into Europe. I think it's a very substantial entry. And from there, we're looking to further scale into Belgium, Germany, and Spain during 2025. This is something that is concretely in our pipeline already. Other than that, we're obviously always exploring the markets where there is room for opportunity. The volumes are really interesting. I think for Europe, this is already quite a decent volume. We have around $95 million in the pipeline currently today, and hopefully at the beginning of Q1, this will all be live on the platform as well, which is interesting for our total volume, especially the volume on chain, because it will bring us well over $200 million. And that's a great number, because it will, first of all, give us a huge head start to any other protocol that is in real estate, tokenizing real estate. But next to that, I also believe that are the volumes that become really significant in the top 10 of RWA protocols that actually run volume. I strongly believe that shoots us anywhere in the top 5 from the top of my head. So that's a really interesting target that we have. That doesn't mean that we sit still. We have a huge target. We will get to that target in a bit as well. But it gives now that truly tangible feeling, I would say, of the efforts and all of the preaching and all of the negotiations that have been taking place to get to this point. So for us, this is really something that we wanted to share with you guys because it hasn't been visible on the forefront yet. But this was truly what it kept us busy on the prop.com side. So if we move to the next slide then, because I think we should talk some numbers. We are talking real estate. Real estate is a great product, but left, right, or center, the actual thing that makes sense is the bottom line result. And that's something which I wanted to share with the update on both the revenues, so the revenues that we are generating from what we have there sitting today, but also at the same time, a bit more insight in the new products that we have been working on that we're looking to roll out here, as well as the expansion plans, because there's some very interesting news that I want to share with you. First of all, on the business model that we have slightly pivoted. If you can remember well, we had a very strong focus on buy and hold properties. Buy in property, fractionalize it, and then basically rent it out for a certain return that is then distributed to all of the fractional holders. For us, we have kind of pivoted from that idea. Why? The margins are fairly low. Also, the interest, like the returns that we can pay out to investors, is fairly low. And we believe that there's a bigger opportunity at this stage of the company in development and redevelopment, but at the same time, in the future, in our future scale out strategy, something that you can see at the right bottom side of the slide already, we are looking to transit more into a debt brokerage. And that means that in many cases, we will have an attachment with development or redevelopment anyway. What are the benefits? Higher interest, generally speaking, a more short timeline, I would say. We're looking, generally speaking, at not much more than 18 to 24 months. So it gives a lot more flexibility and liquidity in the base product alone, which is something that I believe every investor is always striving for. So for us, the pivot was not only a strategic one from the perspective of serving a customer base in a more likely manner, but at the same time, it is also really affecting the revenue that we are able to make as a platform, which is very important if you remember the previous AMA that we did and the explainer that we gave back then already on what our objectives are as prop.com when it comes to our holdings on our balance sheet, which we will run into in a bit as well. The beautiful part here is that at present, with the current pipeline that we have and the current closed revenue that is now in the treasury, we are on average making between 10 to 15% on the volume that we run over the platform, which is, in my opinion, a very lucrative business model, looking at different platforms that are out there which are only doing a few percent. By the way, this is calculated on the basis of zero fees on the investment side on the platform. You're not paying custody fees, you're not paying entry fees, nothing. The fee model that we had is fully revised, and over the course of the next weeks, you will also get a lot more in-depth content on that topic. Nevertheless, we have pushed a lot more weight on the project revenue. So how do we have an interest in the product that we deliver, and how do we make sure that prop.com's equity stake that we take, as well as the underlying project itself, is generating the vast majority of our revenue. And that's something we have built, I believe, with the new propositions, also the new investor direction that we have taken here. Till date, really interesting data. $375,000 in realized revenue. That's making us a non-profitable company. But even better, around $19 million in unrealized revenue currently in the pipeline, which is, in my opinion, a very decent number because it not only makes us profitable and sets us up for the next, 3 to 5 years of runway, but it is also a very tangible figure when it comes to what the future must look like. And that's something where I like to refer to our 5-year plan. $200 million for year one, all the way to $5 billion in 5 years. Ambitious targets, but at the same time, in our opinion, with the strategy that we're following, that I will be briefing you on in a second, is very achievable. Looking at the average revenue numbers, they will probably decrease a bit. I think that you will be on the lower end of 10%, but still, let's calculate it over the total volumes that we're looking to do here. That's some serious revenue. That's 20 million adding up, 60, 120, 350, and 500 million. That's something I believe everyone as a business owner, but also as a non-business owner, can really say from that is a very healthy revenue to have in the treasury. How are we looking to accomplish that? Because it's a very interesting trajectory, I believe, if you start thinking big scale numbers. Just to give you a bit of insight into our daily business operation in prop.com, at the beginning of this year, this target was not more than 20 million. It was only till half of the year, whilst we said, let's 10x that. Let's go 10x on the targets that we have here, cut out all of the micromanagement, all of the small thinking vision that we had at that time. And we said, let's completely reevaluate the business model and see how we can actually make this work. And that starts, first of all, with doing bigger projects and bigger project sizing, but also changing your investor type where you're focused on. And then at the same time, also looking at what are the products, what are the features that we need to develop in order to reach those targets. First of all, I think it's really, really important for us as a team, but I also believe for everyone as a community, an investor, a believer in what we're building here, that we now see that the traction is actually there, that the volume that is raised is basically crossing the targets that we had set at the beginning of the year. That says a lot about what we are doing as a company and also how well we would be able to achieve the targets that we have set for ourselves. But I think two important columns here are, first of all, the fact that we are now in the process of also making an expansion to the United States. We're currently working on the SEC filings for all of the securities that we are issuing on the prop.com platform. This has nothing to do with PROPC as a utility token. This is purely focused on the actual investment opportunities that are there. Why? Because we believe US has a huge potential as a market. There's a lot of investment volume that is currently looking to invest the money elsewhere. The UAE is just coming up for the US crowd. At the same time, many of them actually seem to like the European markets as well, which is not too crazy because you have seen large institutional investment funds out of the US being quite active in the European markets already. But essentially, it's opening up a wholly new cross-border investment experience for US investors. So hopefully we can still get it done this year. It's all in the works. It's a lot of work, actually. It's a lot more work than I expected initially. But this is, I think, a really, really big accomplishment for the platform of prop.com as a whole. Other than that, the new products and features, I think also a very interesting topic to talk about today. Because first of all, the leverage is, I think, the closest to being launched. We still have a target date of Q1 2025 to issue the first leverage on our platform to the users that are currently investing on the platform already. I will explain a bit more about how that works in the next slide, but we stay on this one for a bit. I saw it switching by here. So leverage will be the first one. Other than that, something we have talked about a lot in the past, but which also was quite hard to grasp, was the instant liquidity. So how can we create a mechanism where people can always have direct liquidity, like what we know on the traditional market as a distressed sale, listing your property, listing your asset at a lower price to get rid of it quick? How can we make that digital, right? And that's something that came quite hand in hand, I would say, with leverage on the platform. And I will explain more about that in a bit. How do these things effectively grow the volume of our platform? Very simple. It is external liquidity that is being utilized by existing platform users and which can only be spent on the platform. Why is this beneficial? This compares to taking a mortgage in the traditional world. Taking a mortgage, having like additional value in your house, taking a mortgage against it, buy the second property and keep on doing that to build and scale your portfolio, obviously in a conscious manner so you don't over-leverage yourself. This is something which is obviously benefiting the new frontier investor, so to say, somebody that has broken loose from the status quo of going into your village and buying an apartment and renting it out. You have made the switch now to actually buying that fraction of a large-scale real estate project online. And now you also get the opportunity to lend money against it and to spend it on further enhancing and growing your portfolio. This is something which is very interesting, I believe, for a user. But at the same time, it's also a very interesting model for a liquidity provider. Why? Why is it more interesting than financing a traditional real estate asset? Because the liquidity provider is not financing the full 100% value of the asset and then a portion of that, which is known as loan to value. But he is basically financing a loan to value of an already decreased loan to value, so to say, because as you have read on the platform, we're not offering more than 70% loan to value. Again, more about that in a bit, but at the same time, I do think it's very fundamental to understand that this is effectively scaling the machine a lot more rapidly than us trying to reach 600 million on just front-end volume alone. Let's say if 50% takes that leverage against it, it already seriously decreases your front-end efforts to reach that volume target. So for us, leverage and instant liquidity is something that we're really interested in developing first, and it's also something that we have developed, or we are developing because it's not fully ready yet, at this moment in time. Then another very interesting product and feature that we recently launched is called Real Estate Investments as a Service. And it's something that I never really thought about to be so in demand, but apparently the volume is now coming from everywhere because we are in touch with one of the larger wealth management platforms here in the UAE and also one of the largest retail platforms actually in the world to offer our real estate investments as a service product. What is that? It's basically real estate as a service. So what do? A wealth manager approaches us and says, hey, I want to sell a ticket of, let's say, $10 million or $50 million to the customer base that I have on the platform. We then go out there, find the right opportunities, package it in a security, and we deliver that security to that particular wealth management platform to have their investors be able to invest in private market real estate opportunities. This is something that we are now in pilots with. We have one pilot of around $10 million, one around 5, and I think that next week we'll close another one of around 7.5. So this slowly starts building on a whole new spectrum, a whole new B2B service market, actually B2B2C basically, that we are servicing with that product, which is quite amazing because the platforms basically do the work for you. We obviously have our due diligence and management duties, but that's something that is integrated in the operation already anyhow. So for us, actually a really, really big driver of volume, I believe. And it will be a very significant one, I think, in the year one target in 2025. We have taken that as our year one target, actually. Obviously, there's quite a bit of that already raised this year, but we drag it forward. And we're very happy to see how that develops. I think it's also great for brand recognition, brand leverage, and building that trusted image that you want to build, being an investment platform. So for us, really good. Then the joint ventures. It's also something that we have just started. The first pilot is actually live now, partnering up with existing real estate developers to provide them finance in exchange for a stake in the projects that they do. So to us, the joint venture model is something that will work very efficiently, we believe, because we provide the developer with an infrastructure as well to raise money from their communities, something that is not really existent till date. It's generally just a debt facility and that is raised by the platform. Here, it's a collaboration between the developer and between us, especially here in Dubai. It's a really interesting model because there's a lot of developers that cannot fund the projects in full their own, but they do have a great community to raise from. And we are basically delivering the infrastructure as well as the opportunity to the users on our platform. So this is a very interesting one. First pilot is live. Also will be listed on the platform next week for you all to look at. And that is actually the first stepping stone to how we envision to end being prop.com. And also how we envision to reach 5 billion in year 5, because that's an ambitious target. And for the real estate developers amongst us, you also know what kind of management operation that would bring with it if you would like to manage that all on your own. So we thought, and we sat down and said to ourselves, okay, that will be a quite impossible target if we would be doing all of those propositions ourselves. So how can we change that? A joint venture is obviously the first. So we are basically outsourcing the development work and come on board as a liquidity provider. But that goes all the way to becoming an actual debt brokerage. And I think that's where we really envision to end up with Propchain, changing a narrative, changing a way of how we invest in real estate on the basis of the debt that we provide to the actual owners, developers, redevelopers, whatnot, in the real estate market. If you look at the real estate market volumes today, the vast majority of the volume that you see there, or maybe even more than the actual volume of assets underneath it, especially in the last years, is debt. So what is king there? Debt is king. The actual real estate and the real estate development is just the underlying asset on what is the basis of the collateral behind that debt. And I think that brings the scale, whilst at the same time still changing a narrative for the people that invest and that use the platform. So to us, an interesting list of products and features that we're working on. And we're very actually happy to say that on Q1, the leverage and the instant liquidity will probably already come to life. But even more happy that the first real estate investments as a services, as well as the joint ventures, and basically with that also the debt brokerage vision is alive already today. So these were the updates that I wanted to share on the whole revenue play and on the further expansion. Then we have the leverage and liquidity mechanics. It's nice to explain a bit about. So how does this actually work? What are we building here? I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Platform, leverage pool, liquidity providers. That's basically what you're looking at here today. Platform speaks for itself. It's the platform that is there currently today that offers real estate propositions to international investors for a fixed income, right? And for a fixed term, collateralized by the underlying real estate. And then at the same time, you have the leverage pool. So this is basically the pool where liquidity for the leverage will be demanded from. Now, how does that work? A platform user can basically push his real estate holdings, his existing investments as a collateral to the leverage pool. And in exchange for that, he is receiving, let's say, 50% loan to value on the value that he holds. So if he invested 100K, he can lend 50K that he can then use to grow his portfolio. At the current interest rates, we're trying to be just around that, just a bit above, because our liquidity providers need to make a return as well. But let's say you can lend the money at 5%, but you can make 8 or 9% in the actual platform. That brings a spread. And that spread is obviously how you further grow your wealth. At the same time, for the liquidity providers, this is really interesting. Why? The investor that is putting his 100K on the leverage pool as a collateral has a lot more collateral than the 100K. What do I mean by that? The investment that this investor did on the platform is not 100% LTV. It has a maximum LTV of 70%. So we're only financing 70,000 if we have 100,000 collateral. That means that the leverage pool is effectively taking even less risk. They are financing, let's say, only 50% of that 70%, which is then 35% in the basic calculation. So effectively, I think for both institutional investors, as well as banks, as well as DeFi protocols that we're looking to build here, the DeFi pools, this is an extremely interesting and new marketplace, so to say, where they can invest in debt, but not directly in the real estate debt, actually in the collateral of a user, so to say. For us, that's an interesting model to pitch, not only because of that matter, but also because of the fact that we have relatively short maturity securities. So that means that in the vast majority of the cases, the collateral, in case of a default, will unlock within 18 to 24 months, which is obviously a great value proposition for a bank, for a DeFi protocol and also for an institutional investor. Other than that, I also believe that the interest that we can pay out here is fairly high. What does that mean? Because if you look at that in the basis, we have changed the focus on the platform. Retail has been kind of eliminated on the platform, but at the same time, as I told you already, we don't want to push them out of this great concept and of the opportunity that arises here. So what have we done? On the DeFi side, we're currently in the works to create DeFi pools. From those DeFi pools, you can provide liquidity to the leverage pool and you can earn an interest on your fiat or on your stables there. And this is how we are essentially now migrating the lower tier non-qualified investors into the DeFi landscape, still to have an opportunity to be part of this in an even more safe manner, I would call it. So that's the shift in focus that we have here. Obviously, these two elements are very closely interconnected. The pool can only be filled when there's collateral, but the pool can also only take can also only take collateral when there's money, right? So there's an increased effort needed to get both sides of the equation filled in the correct manner to make this work. And I believe that right now, with the initial liquidity that we are providing to the pool, we can do the pilots, we can test the technology, where we'll get into in a second, and actually make this concept hard and show the proof of concept to both the liquidity providers as well as the users on our platform. And that brings me to the next slide, actually, which is the token utilities. Let's step base and let's stand still by what those utilities are today. I think that's very important. So first of all, we have the voting rights, the governance side of the utility token, something we have been setting up, something we have been testing, and something that has already made successful decisions on the level of the foundation. Again, I am not the foundation. The company is not the foundation. The foundation is an individual element of the whole ecosystem that is driven by the DAO, so driven by the people that have voting rights. That also means that from here onwards, we're starting to launch the more significant proposals and decision-making items. Why? It's not only about the token any longer. This is also about tech. This is also about exposure. This is also about providing grants to the underlying companies that actually want to grow their business. And I believe that that is a collective decision that is being made on the basis of voting. And we are looking to further develop that over time with a public treasury and with basically an open ecosystem for proposals and voting on those proposals together with the partners and together with the community that is behind it. I think that the foundation has also already had great incentives, like the buybacks that have been done from pre-sale and everything that came alongside that, which obviously holds the further growth of the foundation as a main target. Other than that, the current utility of staking, something that we have been looking at, something that we have been revamping over time as well, and something that now actually in the next few weeks will get a fully dedicated account management team, as well as a dedicated marketing campaign to further develop on the staked amounts in our pools, because I believe we can build that a lot bigger. Also something where the foundation and the DAO mechanism will come into place again. But then the future utilities, definitely something why I believe a lot of you are here today. It was all about token integration. When is that happening? When is it going to come? Is it still going to happen? Yes, it's happening. Of course it's happening. It's always happening, but sometimes things take more time. And in this particular case, it was really the legal element that took a lot of time. You need to understand with the structure how it is today, with a foundation with no beneficial owners and basically the whole decision-making policy that needs to happen there. This is really, really a big legal nut to crack. And luckily we have been able to crack it. And maybe even better, next week it's happening. Next week, the actual Prop.com token integration is going to happen in Prop.com. And what does that mean? That does partially mean that the underlying fees that will be in the future products like leverage and all these things will be fully driven in PROPC. But maybe even more important, as Prop.com, we are looking to hold our entire cash balance sheet in PROPC. And I think that that is a very interesting thing to hear, looking at the information that was just distributed here in the presentation. So this is a very big next step. I will show it to you on the next slide, what that will look like. But yeah, I cannot say more that next week we will do our first acquisition. Then the leverage tier system. So when we launch the leverage, we will start with the tier system. And the tier system basically means that a person that wants to take leverage on the platform needs to have X% of the leverage amount in his staking pool, basically, in order to unlock that leverage in the tier staking. Again, something that we have built fully in the basis of Web 2.5. You don't have to buy tokens. You don't have to make a wallet. This is all done on the basis of non-custodial integration in the app, so with biometrics, and at the same time with an aggregator in the back, also with the staking mechanism in the back. So that means that even the non-sophisticated Web3 person, or the traditional Web 2 person, better said, can actually use this without having to know anything about Web 3. So again, really building in a way that mass adoption can take place. Other than that, also the instant liquidity. A percentage of the instant liquidation will automatically be taken and converted into PROPC and will be sent to the Prop.com treasury. As Prop.com, as a company, we have decided that all of our cash, again, we want to hold it in PROPC. So this is going to be on our balance sheets. And this is something that follows the mechanism that can be seen on the next slide, where you see the initial mechanism. This will further expand over time, but this is the initial part of the integration. So Prop.com, as a business, we make money. We have decided that we believe that cash is something that we are not really interested in. We are way more interested in actually having PropC on our balance sheet. So the treasury, our Prop.com treasury, will be filled with PropC. We believe as a company, so me speaking as an owner of the Prop.com company, we believe that the vision that the foundation carries forward is a vision that really holds a lot of weight, but maybe holds even more potential. And because of that belief, we have decided that on a frequent basis, we will be doing grants to the foundation. We will be giving back to the foundation. We will be supporting the vision and the mission and the further development of that foundation by granting portions of our balance in the Prop.com treasury back to the foundation. So this is the initial mechanism besides the product integrations like the leverage and the instant liquidations that will be integrated. And I believe that is a big leap forward and something that we can really be proud of as a company. Launch date next week. So keep an eye on our channels because this will be interesting. And it will also line up with the next slide, which holds a lot more fireworks. Great. We haven't been sitting still for no reason because there's a lot more coming, guys. Community growth. With what? With an active ambassador program that is being launched. We are having a perpetual ambassador program coming up where you can earn to do or by doing missions for the ecosystem, by spreading the word, by having certain performances on chain, on the exchanges, you name it. You will be rewarded all the time. You can actually partake in the monthly leaderboards that we are launching here, which comes with great giveaways, with great incentive. So we're really looking forward to build that ultra rock solid community that goes all in during the next sentiment that we're having ahead of us. And also, we are further scaling our Web3 dashboard. We're actually launching a completely revamped version of the D-app. We've seen many problems in the past. We have heard you all, but there were more important things to fix in the meantime, besides the stuff that we really couldn't redo again. So we have said, let's build an entirely new Web3 dashboard, which also includes all of the underlying mechanics and data of the Prop.com ecosystem and its underlying verticals. So we're really excited to launch that. Then on the tech side, the deployment of the tokenization infrastructure, the first version, but also the version that will bring us directly on chain, and that will also portray our volumes on chain. So a very exciting moment to have that launch happening shortly, because that will provide a lot of exposure and finally gives us the opportunity to go out there and to make the noise that we wanted to make for such a long time already, but we needed to sit on our hands, which I hate, as you may know, if you know me. So then, cross-chain. We're launching cross-chain applicability for the PROPC token as well as the tokenization infrastructure, something that we are working on for a while, and that is coming to conclusion now as well. Then the oracles that are being integrated for off-chain data to on-chain data, proof of reserves, you name it. Few of our big partners who will be integrated in that particular section as well. The launch of the DeFi pools is coming to you as well, that I just explained. And the first step towards something which is, I think, the most revolutionary under the Propchain business verticals, which is the programmable finance topic, where we will be launching V1. What is programmable finance? This is something you will find out shortly, but it's groundbreaking. And I can tell you we are the first one to do this in the space with a lot of really, really interesting backing. That brings me to the partners, where marketing and the marketing department have specifically asked me not to name drop. So I said, okay, but then at least let me tease a bit. The largest tech consulting firm in the world that is joining us on that mission, which is great. You can gamble. Probably the most well-known Oracle provider today in this space, which is on our case now and in our mission. I believe that next week, if I'm not spoiling too much, we can maybe actually spoil the name. I think the most well-known consortium today in RWA, and several layer 2 chains actually that are added to the partnership section of the Propchain ecosystem. So I would say speculate away and keep an eye on the socials, because there's exciting news coming, and it's something that also has been in the works for such a long period of time. So we're really happy to be there. And then I think one of the topics on the positioning side, where everybody has been absolutely spamming us about, is the exchange listing strategy. And also there, guys, to us, this is really a timing element. As you know, we love timing. We have been sitting still, we have been working, and to us it made no sense to commence on that exchange listing strategy. Today, with the market turning, we do get the interest again, and we have decided to continue on our listing efforts. We have several tier 2s, we have several tier 1s that we are launching to you. I'm not going to push here any hard deadlines. Why? Because I'm still waiting on the general sentiment to further enhance itself. I mean, till date, anything can happen, but everything is in the clip, and maybe you will see the first one popping up soon. The RWA dashboard expansion, for the ones that didn't see it, we have created the June RWA dashboard, and now in that partnership with June, we're going to expand that, especially with the data that is coming from our end. This is a section that will be placed into the June dashboard as well, but we're also looking to further create the leaderboards and the comparisons when it comes to protocol revenue out of RWA, the growing volumes, you name it, not just the token performance. So there's a lot more data being added there, which is, in my opinion, very fundamental to get a better understanding of the space, what is happening, what is being earned, where the substance actually moves. So we're really interested to see how that further enhances your knowledge and insight into the overall space. Then the team expansion. We have a serious team expansion, actually. I think we're filling over 20 vacancies at present across Propchain as well as Prop.com. We have a bunch of real heavyweights joining the team as well, especially on the Prop.com side, but also on Propchain. A lot of interesting stuff is happening when it comes to the human resources side of things. So very happy with that as well. There's actually a lot of vacancies that we will also be sharing with you guys. Feel free to refer us people. We're always looking for the best talent in town, and you can get rewarded for it. So more about that shortly as well. Then the regional presence of Prop.com. I think also very interesting topic. We are working now on the scale out strategy throughout Europe, also with physical presence. So with actual locations, brick and mortar locations where the qualified investor can run into and where he can speak with one of our advisors in order to further scale the presence and also the tangibility of the concept of digital real estate investing. So it's actually a funny turn that we took, but it's, I think, a very necessary turn in order to now get foot on the ground in many different regions where we're obviously also looking for top talent. So more about that shortly, but really nice to see that the first physical one is actually in the works now today. So also a great, I think another great accomplishment for prop.com. Then again, taking the number one in real estate, it's on the schedule. There's only a tech item pending. When that's done, we can come in as the number one. That's really a good feeling because that's where we were working for. And then the top 10 in RWA being entered. Also very, very excited about that one. Has also been quite a pool, and there's quite a few that are not in private markets that have been doing amazing and that are printing huge volumes. So I think it will give an even bigger feeling of reward when you come there with a very harsh private market. Anyway, glad to be in that list, and I'm also really looking forward to start collaborating with the others amongst there and with any RWA protocol in general, because I believe that there's so much to do and so much to connect, especially now with the knowledge everyone has on the tech direction when it comes to what we're building from a debt marketplace perspective and the whole DeFi side that we are opening up today. And then the first RWA branded event. We do a small one here in our office now, roundtable, very interesting people on the table as well, where we will be speaking about RWA. And this is the first step towards our 2025 agenda, where we're looking to do multiple large-scale events as well out of the Propchain brand in the RWA direction. And that brings me, I think, to the end of this AMA. It's, I think it was quite a huge one. Okay, guys, that was very exciting. I hope you liked it. I hope you became wiser by this AMA today. I hope you have seen the bigger picture, that you have seen the perspective, that you also have seen where we have been busy with, and that you have also seen where this is heading with the actual record and the actual tangibility that we have been able to create till date. That was very important for me to drag that point and to drive that point over the line. Other than that, the tech updates, I believe it's fundamental to any form of success that we're having and will have in the future. So having an educated community here that has the perspective and the clarity on that roadmap is really important to us. And I believe that summarizes the whole lot. From here onwards, we will become more active again. As I mentioned, we're now through a very heavy building phase. So for us, the main focus now is to go into full stack communication phase again. So expect a lot of fireworks from this side of the pond. So that was it. It was really good to be back. It was against my nature, so to say, to sit on my hands for such a long period of time. But very happy to have been able to update you all. And I'm really looking forward to be back here in the studio very shortly again. Thanks for joining and have a great evening.